Relax, Deborah. Relax,
Yeah.
everybody. All for one. It's just about love. It's just about connection. All right. Hello. Welcome. Welcome, everybody, to the Great Transition, where we talk about what's going on in the world through the lens of the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah. Hello, Asaf, back from family vacation. I'm glad you made it
Yes.
with just
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
nick of time. How is
yeah.
the world out there?
Family vacation quite limited, COVID restrictions and so on. But
Mm.
I was still on a roller coaster with my son, literally.
Children are
And
still laughing and life is still happening out there. That's
kind
good.
of, kind of.
All right.
Just before the end of the world hits. So,
Okay, okay. And Chris, hello behind the scenes. After spending
Hi
the
there.
summer in Texas, hello there. I know you're back in Israel too with the family, with the wife and kids and everyone. So happy to be with you both today, my great dear friends, and all of our friends who join us from Brazil and Utah and Ohio and Quebec and everywhere else in Florida and who else and where else. Thank you,
UK, I
Azarel,
see.
for what?
UK, South Africa. Yeah.
Yetzi in the Netherlands, and Azarel is again streaming us live from Wales out to Castbox, and whoever is listening out there in Castbox, let us know where you are so we can have you in our minds. So, what a topic today. We are approaching a spiritual renaissance. There's something that happens that's not our responsibility or not in our wheelhouse of stuff that we're responsible for, and that's like moving from a plant to an animal. These kind of things are part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Later we'll discover it's actually all inside of us, but in the meantime we're just going, okay, there's some history, there's some trajectory, and we
Uh-huh.
see that when the desire inside of the creature changes, the mind changes.
Hmm.
Right, when the creature just wakes up in the morning, caveman, my great grandparents, my cave grandparents, grandma and
Yeah.
grandpa, they woke up in the morning, we need to eat. So the mind thinks, what can I do? I have a spear, I have a rock, let me go. Oh, and the last time I hunted with this guy and that guy, we were successful, so let's go. Right, you wake up today and then the first thing is like, what's going on my phone? Where's my coffee? So basically
Yeah.
there's a desire in us. We talked about this actually last week. Walter Z, I think, asked a question about, are my thoughts my own?
Hmm.
So what we talked about was that from the side of nature, we're given a desire. And as that desire increases, the mind serves the desire. The mind is going through and figuring out how to fulfill that desire. And by this, we can actually go back and see periods of development, not only from stardust
Hmm.
into matter, but into more complex forms of matter, but also within humanity itself, we can see different
Yes.
periods depending on how
Sure.
the desire in humanity developed. So we had a lot of development up until, and all of these things, by the way, all of these periods, we don't study this in normal school, but as you start studying the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah or the wisdom of Kabbalah, you see that there is this other history that we never learned about. For example, when we see Pythagoras and when we see the Greek philosophers and we see the great Roman um, uh, social structure that developed,
Mm-hmm.
and before that there was the Persian, and there was also the Persian society. When we see these, there was always the Kabbalists developing, and we could even go back and see how the uh, the Greek philosophers, for example, came to study with the prophets of the Bible, not in a religious way. These were people who attained spirituality, and so people came to study with the prophets of Israel. So we don't really
Yeah.
know. It's kind of more hidden in the general education what was going on, that
It's
whole system
it's
there.
it's it's not a yeah, it's not something that is out there in the history books, but if you dig up, you'll find some indications, such as what's his name? There's this German, very famous German philosopher, Johannes Reuchlin. He
Mm-hmm.
writes, I think, in the 16th century, maybe something like that, a couple hundred years ago, anyway. He writes that my teacher Pythagoras, he writes in a book that he titled De Arte Kabbalistica. Like he wrote a book about the wisdom of Kabbalah. Why would a German philosopher write about the wisdom of Kabbalah? And he writes that, Pythagoras actually brought his wisdom, which people call philosophy, from those ancient Kabbalists, and he translated the word Kabbalah to philosophy, and took some ideas, borrowed some ideas, and used that. And he writes that, and then and then if you look deeper down that rabbit hole, you see a bunch of other philosophers, again from hundreds of years ago, who write similar things. So it's very interesting when you think about. I happened to study philosophy for 2 years at some point, and before Kabbalah, and then when you see how all those ways of thinking were kind of borrowed, uh, it makes for an interesting kind of picture of history. But Kabbalah is not
So
philosophy anyway, so it
what, what's
may have sparked the drove the beginning of philosophy, which then became the beginning of science. So Kabbalah is actually at the root of scientific thinking as well. But anyway, why are we going there?
that's what.
Where am I going?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is something that to pay attention to. In the meantime, you'll eventually stumble upon Isaac Newton's Latin copy of the
Right,
Zohar.
Isaac Newton.
So
Yeah,
this is
I don't know all the details there, but there's also something about. Do you know exactly what the he went? I think
well
he studied Hebrew specifically in order to study Kabbalistic texts. There's
was,
some
was
indications of
Newton the
that.
one who did the prism, made the white light
Uh,
into seven colors? I don't remember which guy. Anyway, it's an aside, but this is
is
of
Newton
course
the
it talks about
prism?
that in the Zohar.
Chris, help us here with basic history that we that evades our mind, please. Please. Yeah. Okay.
So
Go ahead.
okay, it's interesting, and it will help us as we kind of put together our picture of reality. We're not really interested in studying history, but it will help us kind of understand what's happening, and will make so many things clear that were not really clear before. So we had this the rise of the Roman Empire, of course, and that corresponds. We've said this in the show before. All these empires corresponded with things that happened to the Kabbalists at the same time. They had that temple, that second temple in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so after the fall of the Roman Empire, there was a like a descent period, time of war, famine, pandemics, lack of education, things like that, and then a revitalization came again, and we had the printing press like 1,000 years later or something, and ideas started to spread quickly. And then we get to what we know as the Renaissance. That's where we get the word Renaissance from. So check this out. Within a period of a couple hundred years, you had Da Vinci, Rene Descartes,
Right.
Galileo,
Yeah.
Copernicus, Geoffrey Chaucer, Machiavelli, you had Shakespeare, you
Yeah.
had Michelangelo, the sculptor and the painter. You also
Yeah.
had so with these guys, what was very unique is all of a sudden in their work, there was like light, there was shadow, there was depth. It was like many more. They had deeper
Yeah,
feelings.
they
They
each
could start to.
presented very mind-shifting, earth-shattering ideas, each in their world of expertise and world. It's very interesting, and it all kind of
So it's like
happened at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like when we first looked at the body, it is what it is. But then you get a microscope, and then you can go and see. Okay, so then there's molecules. Okay, molecules are made of atoms. Okay, atoms are made of quarks. And so it's the
Hmm.
same kind of thing. Where as we developed, as the human desire developed, the mind developed to serve that, and then also you had in art and thought you had that, and then you also had this thing of about exploring. Like before I was my family, feeding my family, sleeping in my cave. And then I was my
Hmm.
town. Maybe my town provided me my village provided me some protection against animals or protect against others. Or, I was good at hunting, but somebody else was good at making baskets or whatever. And then it
Right.
became
Yep.
nations and et cetera. So
Hmm.
at a certain point, it grows even more. I want to see what other countries there are. Why? Why do you want to see what other countries there are?
I don't
Where does
know.
this come from?
I need to.
Why do you need
Yes.
to, yeah, why do you need to do that? Why do you need to cross the ocean?
Yeah.
That's
Why? Yeah.
serious. Like,
Why? 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 What's
so
the point?
at the same time, so for you had Magellan and Christopher Columbus also came from this Renaissance period. And again, so the same way with the sculptors and the painters, with the shadow and the light and the depth of emotion, what do we get from Magellan and Columbus and these guys? Well, Magellan specifically, his exploration in India and Africa. Also, now you get spices back to Europe,
Mm-hmm.
because before they weren't able to grow them. They're now all of a sudden you have all this nuance and flavors. So as the
And that
human
starts
desire,
create an economy of spices as well, which then in turn also reinforces the need to build like roads and transportation for these spices, and it all becomes like this roller coaster of human development. Yeah.
so some reason. So imagine, for example, today in a similar way. So before that, we live in England, wherever you live, and you get meat and a potato.
Yeah.
Now you have all these spices. You
Oh
have
yeah.
cloves. You have pepper. You have cinnamon. You have milk. Now milk with cloves and cinnamon. Ooh, warm milk with cloves and cinnamon. That's nice, and a little black pepper. So you have all of these different nuances of flavors, nuances of colors, nuances of shape, and things like that. Um, and it comes from the desire developing. There was no need for a caveman to, well, he didn't have these things, right? He didn't wake up in the morning and he needs to sail across the ocean to go discover something. And even
Right.
after that, think about colonization. Okay, fine. You came here, you got spices. Isn't it enough? No, you have to conquer the whole continent. And now
Hmm.
you feel some right that this place that you discovered is yours? What are you talking about?
Hmm.
That cave was yours. Now all of a sudden you felt that no, the world is mine. I can
Yeah.
take what I
This
want, right?
land is mine.
This
Yeah.
land is
Mm-hmm.
mine. So we get to a basically the physical world, and all of this develop is
Right.
like, what can I acquire for myself? What
Yes.
can I get for myself?
You
Okay.
mentioned
So
the food thing. That sparks a really kind of a train of thought here, because the food, I think food is one of the best examples of the showing like the milestones of human development. If you track what happened with food and food production and our attitude to food, you really discover like how different of creatures we are today in the 21st century than our ancestors even just 100 years ago and 200 years ago. you know we talked about spices. Like there's this, I have an Iraqi side in my family, right? So from that
your
side.
mom's family's from Iraq?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So the there's a very dominant kind of food in Iraqi cuisine, which is um, amba. It's called. It's basically mango sauce. It's kind of mango sauce, but it's like a very specific mango sauce. Anyways, so why did they make it? So you got to wonder. They definitely didn't travel the world and went to explore new countries and new continents and conquer new land just to get that mango to make mango sauce. No, they probably made mango sauce because there was mango, and it was like one of the best, one of the things they had, and they probably had a lot of it. They thought, how can we best use it? How can we make it last? How can we use the mangoes that are maybe not as fresh? And that's how they came up with this recipe to basically use this mango that they have wherever they lived. The geography basically, and the conditions of their habitat dictated the kind of food they ate. And there you go. Here's the mango sauce. Yes, yeah. This is, oh, you see, this one says amba. This one, there's one here that says amba. That's probably that's
It's like a
the
mango curry sauce, which is kind of strange. And
right.
sometimes it could be
I
spicy,
mean, look,
right?
it's in India too. There's roots for it in India too, of course, but Iraqi as well. Anyway, so why did they make it? They made it because it had to do with the natural conditions they lived in. Right now, how so, and that was essentially the how cultures made food. You know what I mean? So any kind of food that you eat that has to do with the culture, if you're tasting like Iraqi food or Irani food or whatever it is, English food or but the farther you go back, the more ancient a culture is, the more their food is comes from the natural conditions that they had when they made it. So when you're tasting it, you're basically tasting not just a flavor, but you're basically tasting, poetically speaking, right? You're tasting the kind of limitations and conditions and kind of life struggles that they went through, because that food represents a certain set of conditions that they had in a certain geography, certain time they had, certain fruit they had, certain vegetables they had, and so on, right? Now today, look how different is that from the thought that goes into how to make food in the 21st century. So first of all, today, you don't look at what nature gave you and you make food based on that. You go to the supermarket, which is also the name of it. The name of it is just so funny when you think about it. It's the supermarket, right? It has like anything you can possibly want. It has whatever you want. Like, this is the abstract abundance that you just need to display your specific desire, and accordingly, there's a stand that holds that fulfillment that you crave. We created
Mm-hmm.
a place of abstract abundance, almost like it's kind of a representation of what the human ego wants. We want fulfillment of any kind for whatever need that awakens in us at any point in time. We want to
I
go
want
to
something crunchy,
yeah,
but also a little bit sweet. And if it can have a smoky taste to it
yes.
too, that would be good. But also, I don't want to feel bloated afterwards. So if it could have none of this and then like
Yes.
that, and
And add to that, okay, so that's on the desire, that's on the consumer part, right? That's how, in the past the consumer was, "Oh, mommy, you made food. Thank you." Right? Today it's like, I want some needs to have like a little bit of salty, but it also needs to be sweet, but I really want it to be like really melting a little bit and like
with the
yeah, and
crunch.
greasy and greasy too. That's the consumer side. Now, who makes your food? Who makes your food? So in the past, your family made your food with love because they wanted to feed you, they wanted you to live, they wanted you to survive, and they thought about how to use the resources in the best possible way to feed the whole family. So here's what nature gave us. We're going to work with that and we're going to try to make everyone well fed, right? Today, the thought that goes into most of the stuff you buy as food, especially anything that comes in a package, essentially the thought is, how can we get you hooked on this thing so your dopamine hormone just explodes as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible to get you hooked
Just a minute, Asaf.
yeah,
Let's go back to how
okay.
we started the show. That each period of human development is marked by the signature of its desire. So the desire in this time called the last generation, meaning the last generation of the physical. The Rabash talks about very often the purpose of creation. He doesn't specifically say it like this, but there's the purpose of creation, which is to fill all the creatures with delight. That's the purpose. That's
Hmm.
why this desire keeps developing from dust until these insatiable creatures. The purpose is just to fill them. But in order to fill them, since our stomach is only that big, since our mouth is only that big, in order to fill it with endless fulfillment, we need to correct creation first. So there's these two things that are happening. So this period now is called the end of the physical world, the end of the material world as we know it. It's the last generation. We're
All
going to
right,
correct.
we need to explain this title too.
Wait, just hey again.
Hey,
Just
Chris.
I thought about this. Yeah, hi. I thought about this, and it's really bugging me that we haven't said it yet. I don't know if you're familiar with the Victorian age. Are you familiar with the Victorian age? Like back
Yes.
then, it was like at the very, it was at the precipice of a lot of different ways how people carried themselves, you know, and how my home looked. Maybe I bring in more objects into my home, and then that kind of establishes who I am and how I present myself to society. Kind of last show we talked about that. But what's interesting then is that was the period also where people started caring about what they smelled like. And that's kind of also something that that kind of carried over
That's
into our
interesting.
generation. And we can't even really imagine what it's like to, okay, I smell bad, I'm not doing it. But then that desire started to kind of emerge a little bit where we started feeling like, oh, wait, it's actually something that I care about is how I smell. You know, so all of these, you're talking about these
Eras.
kind of
These
states and eras that we go through. That's an era that
incremental stages of growth of the human ego and how it clothes in human culture. That's a great example with the smell, isn't it? Because
Really?
yeah, because think about it. Like if you and I lived in the same place in the past, right? In the same geography, same mud everywhere, same swamp, whatever it is, same kind of animals and same kind of climate and all that. No perfume, no, not everyone living in their own like building with their own soap, So we had the same smell also, right? Almost like
Not
how
only that, as animals, we're very efficient, and animals typically don't stink real bad because of the way that they integrate with nature. What they eat passes through them very efficiently, whereas because they're eating
right,
just
because they don't
according
eat the junk, basically. They don't eat
right,
things that are not good for their digestive system. They actually eat what their digestive system needs.
and it's an
Right.
efficient process. For us, we're eating. So basically, I think where you were going with this before, what
No,
marks
but wait, the
our
smell thing, what Chris hit here
uh-huh.
is a really cool point, because with regards to the human ego developing, because if I smell like my group, right, that's sort of that's one psychology that we came from. Now you have this sense of smell being developed towards differentiation between me and other people, and I all most of what I how I want people to smell me. It's a social psychological mechanism that drives that. Why would you care about how you smell? Right? Why do you need to? People wouldn't. Why did people start caring about why they smell? Why don't we just smell as natural as we are, and that's it? But the moment that the ego grows, meaning our sense of differentiation between us and others, our sense of separation, our sense of individual independent consciousness, then the more we need to feel distinct, to feel separate, to feel different. And it even plays out in how we smell, how we become sensitive to smelling others, smelling each other, and how we think about how we want to be smelled. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, I just think that's a really
No, this is
interesting
great. It
point.
reminds
Yeah.
me of being an early teenager at summer camp, and the one kid who was the oldest one had this bottle of, it was called Drakkar. It was like this cologne.
Mm.
Every kid would kind of like steal a squirt, and like you started to feel like you were more mature, like when you would leave the bunk in the evening. You
Yeah,
felt because
sure.
of this smell. So everything in our era, this period of humanity, has become poisonous. Like you were saying, our food before was off of the tree. It was what was here. But now the motive behind food is profit.
Yes.
The motive behind any human endeavor
and
now
and
is
then
how
it
can
changes, and it changes the actual chemical. It goes all the way into the chemical structure that makes up your food, and how actually good or bad it is for your health, because
So
the
every
intention that shapes it is comes from a whole different place.
that
Yeah.
right, right, exactly, and that's why we stink. So so everything now is about how can I um, hook how can I start getting your dopamine? How can I start
Yes.
hitting your dopamine center and get that dopamine
Uh,
releasing into your body through my product? How can
exactly.
I relate my product to dopamine in order that you'll buy more crap from me?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
We
So if
are
I
the
have a
dopamine culture, I would say. This is
right,
like one of the most obvious indicators of the 21st century. That
so there's
everything around us is designed to just trigger your dopamine centers in your brain as quickly as possible and relate them to a certain color, brand, logo, name, celebrity, whatever it is, just so you can just where is that thing that gave me that rush, I need that. Where is that thing that gave me, and it's everywhere, it's everywhere. Just think, food production, pornography, social media, the algorithms are designed to elicit dopamine in a dopamine response in your brain. Every time you see that notification thing and you don't know what it is, there is a certain rush because you know you're going to get something and you don't know what it is, and it excites you, and there's a certain thrill, a certain rush, and then it gets you to click that and waste more time on that and start caring about things that are not necessarily what you need to care for in terms of your well-being and health and all that. And so all of these, everything around us is just working on this dopamine mechanism, just to get you hooked, to get you addicted. And that shapes mainstream media, it shapes social media, it shapes our food production, it shapes the news. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah.
so before, if I didn't have food, if I didn't have freedom, if I didn't have a good future yet, I could think of um, overcoming my challenges and reaching something. Today, we see an interesting phenomenon in mostly first world countries,
Mm.
this thing where people are victims. Everyone's a victim of someone else.
Explain
Okay,
that.
because,
Explain what you mean.
huh?
Explain what you mean, because I don't know if I'm interpreting it the way you're.
Around sexual identity, around, for example, the United States, okay,
Yeah.
for all of its problems, when we look at all of history and we look at many of the other countries in the world, for all of the terrible, terrible problems even that exist here, there's people from 100 cultures living together basically in peace. I mean, until, there's been problems, but it's quite a social experiment
The
that,
United States. Oh, for sure. The United States
yeah,
is
there's
definitely
food
a
here,
social
there's,
experiment.
there's not earthquakes all the
No,
time, and
just the fact that it's actually not a nation in the sense that it has thousands of years of history like other nations. Just even that, just to bring all of those different immigrants essentially to the same place and create an artificial, basically, nation from them. That itself is a very interesting and unique thing.
so what
Um,
we see happening recently
has a
is
strong.
that
I'll just
there's
have to throw it. I just have to throw this thing. Won't get into it. It has one parallel, clear parallel that I see in history, and that's the Jewish people. But won't get into this now. That's
America,
just
you mean, that it's a mixture of all these
yes,
different,
yes,
okay.
because
um
the little known birth story of the Jewish people is actually very close to this. But anyway, not for now.
okay,
Yeah,
so
I threw you off completely.
where
You
were
had
we?
you
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
certain train of thought,
Ah, this
and
this
I
vi- this
just
victim,
and
this
I
kind of
went.
victim
I'm on a roller
mentality.
coaster. I told you. I just got off a roller coaster with my son. My
That's
head
all
is.
good. So this kind of
Go
victim
ahead.
mentality that everybody is somehow a victim of something, um, and
Oh,
it
I
it
see where
kind
you're
of
going.
comes. So I'm relating it to this kind of first world mentality. I don't need to hunt for food. My country's not in the middle of a war. Um, and so I need, let's think of it like this. Like there's like a Liam Neeson or any of these kind of Hollywood movies, right? What happens at
It's all the
what
same
happens at the
movie, by the way.
what
It's
happens at the
they're
beginning of
all
the
the
movie
same
if you think,
movie.
right? You think of the
Yeah.
formula. The opening 10, 15 minutes, it shows, for example, the
Yeah.
father with his daughter, and it
Right.
shows them running on the beach or playing on the swing or
It
making pancakes for
everything's
breakfast.
great. Yes.
Right. Or if it's a
Mm-hmm.
Tom Cruise movie, it shows him with his beloved, right? That's the first 10 minutes. Then
Yeah.
the next hour shows how that thing that they love breaks and
Yeah.
it becomes hidden and becomes far away. And he spends an hour trying to reach it. And then the last 10 minutes is about the reuniting. Clear, right? So if
Yeah.
I don't care.
I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you do, as long as you love it. Nice.
So
Uh,
so so without that opening scene, we need to establish that we love something, that we miss something, and then there's the longing to move forward with it. What's happening in our society, and that's where all of these kind of stories are built of. This is the whole kind of human condition now that I feel I'm missing something and I need to go try and figure out how to fulfill it. That light has to first come in and then it leaves in the vessel, right? It's right out
mm-hmm.
of the Zohar, right out of the Tree of Life by the Ari. The light comes into the vessel and
Mm-hmm.
then it leaves. I have this love, and then it disappears, and now I need to go find how
Yeah,
to
the
reunite with it.
the classic three act structure of most the Hollywood films is basically boy wants girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl, basically, or anything, put in this equation whatever you want. But yeah, and why are we wired for that kind of story? Because the creation of the need is what creates the need for the fulfillment, the need for closure. All of the operas, why are they so successful? Because they work on this need for closure. As human beings, when we feel a need, we need it to be filled because we're built from a desire. We This is our entire essence, and as soon as we feel a certain clear desire, we need to get its fulfillment. And that's what these soap operas are doing from episode to one episode. They just make sure they build a lag, so you gotta know what happened to Susie or Joe or whatever it is. And and then they stop that episode with the need for closure, and then you got to watch
The
another
the
one and get another. Yeah, you're
the,
using it for
pro,
the
the
purpose of addiction. Yeah.
the
Hmm.
problem with this dopamine addiction culture is that there isn't the emptiness, right? You're just going from boom to there's no refinement of the desire. I just need boom, fill me, boom, fill me. There's no kind of nuance, there's no passion and yearning. When I long for someone, even think of like the
Yeah.
80s love
Oh, I
songs, as
see what you're
corrupted
saying.
as they were,
Yeah.
as kind of corrupted as that, every guy in the 80s who wrote a love song like "I'll Love You Forever," for sure they were divorced, and there was some special made
Yeah.
about them on MTV about that. But um,
No, no, no.
just that you're
I see what you're saying. I would put it like this: instant gratification is the problem with instant gratification is not just that you get hooked on things quickly, because it bypasses all your logic, your is it good for me, is it bad for me. It's just boom, dopamine, thrill, pleasure, right? So it's not just that instant gratification makes you addicted. The problem is it robs you of your ability to train your senses, to train your vessels, to build your sensitivity. Anything that is achieved without uh, a process that requires your conscious participation, your involvement, is a process that will not grow you. And there's the famous Marshmallow Experiment where they do with kids, and they put marshmallow in front of them and they tell them don't eat it yet. And they go out of the room and they see, it's an experiment about delayed gratification, but and it has remarkable results, correlations with what the kids are capable of doing and what they do later in life. But in any case, our culture is getting us so addicted to and used to instant gratification that if something doesn't give us immediate gratification, we have no power. We become lazy and unable to explore things without immediate pleasure. And that's a problem. That's a big problem, because our whole potential as human beings is to develop a desire that we don't already have completely developed in us. That's the difference between us and animals. Animals are completely programmed. Their desires operate them. Ooh, I want grass. I need this, some water. I need to mate. I need this. I need that. For us humans, we have the ability, we have the potential to build a desire, our desire, with our own participation. Any desire that just arises in us and we think that fulfilling it is free choice, it's actually being programmed. It's actually the opposite of free choice. The only free choice we have is if we consciously participate in the development of our own desire. And that can happen only towards spiritual desires. Because in the
So
material
this,
world, it's all done. Anyway, I'm
but
going very
that's
fast here, and I don't know where you want us to.
that's the sign of the end of this material development, so to speak, is that
Right, we have to
now
explain our title too. Yeah, I
so
forgot
so
about the title.
we can't define it, but we can approach it, and it'll start to come into focus that we'll be unable to feel fulfilled anymore from the physical reality. So now we need to be clear, okay, everyone, that we don't have anything spiritual in us. We have a point, actually. That's why we're here. I call it a point in the heart. But in our life, really, we don't have any will to bestow. We don't have anything spiritual. So we start to ask ourselves, why am I suffering? And then we try and search, how can I get rid of this suffering? And we can try and minimize the desire, you know. Um, but through certain exercises, we start to see in ourselves what's going on. So there's different degrees of wanting to enjoy. First, I'm like an animal. I just want to enjoy to enjoy. I'm not even conscious. I want to eat something. I go to eat it, and that's it. Then, okay, well, now I want to give. Now, as we start, developing a little bit, I want to give because I see that it's better. So I want to give, but I want to give because it's better for me. This already in the wisdom of Kabbalah is almost called like lolishma, right? I want to give. I'm not an animal anymore. I'm starting to maybe be like monkey plus. I see that it's better to give, but I'm doing it because I see it'll be better for me. Now we draw a line. After that, we say, well, actually, the next step, and this is where what nature's kind of performing on us, is the first from King David's Psalms. He wrote, turn from evil and do good. Forget
Hmm.
about good. Forget about doing good at all. First things first, just stop doing bad. So all of this, all our businesses, our food is poisoning, our water is poisoning, our new solar panels are polluting, our cars are just everyone stop, and we can see through the coronavirus already. It's like shutting everything down. Stop. Everybody go home. Why? The vice president of the United States made an announcement this week that people should start buying their Christmas presents now. She's in Asia, Southeast Asia now, saying that we should start buying our Christmas presents now. I don't know why she said that, but I can see in my own business we're having supply chain issues, The
Mm-hmm.
mechanism that used to supply all the parts and all the toys and all the junk and
Mm-hmm.
all the crap, that where does it end up? Eventually ends up just in a landfill somewhere. This giant consuming machine that's just making waste. That
Yeah. Yeah.
40% of the, the second biggest polluter is the fashion industry, because every season we're buying more crap. And we talked in our show about the mountains of clothes in Ghana, wherever it is.
Right.
And we're taking all this carbon out of the ground. We're taking hundreds of millions of years of carbon out of the ground and throwing it into the air. So there's too much, right? Everything we do all day is just to try and fulfill ourselves,
I, I,
just leaves us more empty, and just hurts the whole system.
yes,
So
and I think it's twofold. What's the process that's happening now? There's a process that's happening where more and more limitations are imposed on our current culture from outside. So the climate doesn't like what we're doing. The planet is getting warmer. The everything, or the conditions around us are becoming more and more problematic. The financial system is becoming less and less stable. Economic inequality is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. Mass immigration is changing the social fabric in many in more ways than one. The COVID, of course, which doesn't seem to actually go away. It goes away and comes back and mutates and comes back, and now we need another kind of vaccine and another kind of vaccine. And the ice caps that are melting are now potentially releasing into the air 15,000 kinds of new
not
viruses.
potentially,
What?
not
But
potentially.
so every these are like external limitations which are signaling to our culture, to the human culture on the planet, that we have to change direction, or like you said, at least pause for a second, stop, relax, slow down, like figure out where you are. That's one aspect of the process. But I think it's twofold. The other aspect is an internal aspect that's happening. We are beginning to see that nothing fulfills us. We're beginning to recognize that we've created a culture that we make ourselves addicted to anything that we can in the name of profit, right? Everything that we create is guided by that intention to maximize profit. And because of that, we are poisoning ourselves. And like we said, it's very clear with the food industry, but forget the food industry. How about the medicine and the medical industry, the health industry? That there's the same problem exists there. You really, I remember we talked about it at some point about how there are some great cures for some horrible diseases, that some of them don't go into production because there's not enough profit in producing them. So we have a problem with this intent, this guiding intention of our culture, and we're beginning to see internally that our desire to be fulfilled can't be satisfied with material things. That, I
And
think,
for
is
this,
what's
I want to
gradually
for this,
happening.
I want to thank the maker of
And
the
that,
heaven and the earth,
yeah.
through his angels, the corporate oligarchs
Mm,
and the corrupt politicians,
sure.
the angels of the Most High, who sit in Washington D.C. and who sit in corporate boardrooms on Wall Street and Silicon Valley. All of these angels who are helping humanity realize that we will never
Yes.
be fulfilled. So thank you to everyone. I don't. I mean, I know that they're just puppets
Thank you for
in the
doing
hands
your
of.
your role in nature's
Thank
bigger
you for
plan.
performing your role, and we want
Yeah.
to understand already what's happening, and we can speed up the time here through going through this process consciously. So imagine that there is. Well, you don't have to imagine so much. If you've been to a planetarium or you've seen a picture of space, and you
Mm-hmm.
know that scientists are scanning every day for another hospitable planet, in all of the known universe, all of it, everything, hundreds of billions of light, whatever. There's one tiny speck that supports human life. We only found one so far, okay?
Right. Yes.
One human speck. And
And it's a
on
very,
this one,
very unique in terms of the conditions and the constancy that it keeps in such a dynamic world. The it's the homeostasis that manifests on planet Earth and is required for life to exist and evolve is nothing short of miraculous in terms of
and this
probabilities and so on, like the
right, and
probabilities
this
for it to happen.
one
Yeah.
tiny speck produces enough food for 20 billion. Enough food for, I mean, if we're wasting today, I don't remember what we said, one third of all the food. I don't know. There's plenty
Some
of food.
statistics say up to 50% of food produced globally goes to waste.
Okay.
Uh,
So this one tiny speck in all the universe that we've been able to find so far is the only one that can sustain human life. Okay. Not only that, it provides enough food for everyone. Not only that, there's enough money here for everyone. Not only that, there's enough water here for everyone. There's enough clean air here for everyone. There's enough beautiful things to do for everyone. There's a
right.
lover for everyone. And we are doing our best to
and
destroy it as
and we're
fast
and we're
as
looking
possible.
and we're looking for new planets to destroy as well.
We are running towards a world war. We're looking to destroy
Yeah.
our neighbors. We're looking to destroy our competitors. We're looking
Right.
to drug our kids instead of spending time with them. We have a kid,
Yeah.
we run right back out to work every mom, and people have to work, but we are doing our damnedest to destroy everything as fast as possible. Okay, that's
Yeah.
basically what's going on. There's one place in the whole known universe that supports life as much as possible. So now let's do a little thought exercise for a second. Imagine there's a planet, this one. Imagine there's a place that provides everything you could need, right? And soon we'll see with all these robots and everything like that, they can perform all of the boring jobs. So you need to so
Right.
there's very little left for us to do. There's food for everyone. There's enough of everything. Imagine you wake up because of the spices and everything. It smells beautiful when you wake up because the person next to you has, like Chris was talking about, the Victorian era. Now we
Yeah.
have this thing, we want to smell nice, right? And you go downstairs or you go into the kitchen and there's rose petals in front of you walking at every step. This is how life can be. And you go to the kitchen and someone made some warm milk with, or vegan oat milk or whatever you like, with cinnamon and cloves
Okay.
and right. And this and everything is just beautiful. And this host wants to give us everything. There's everything here we can imagine. Now, we're still talking about the physical world, but we're just using this as an example that there is enough of everything. And we now, because we're not a creature, we're not just an animal, we start to relate to this like, oh, in all of the universe, there's one tiny place, and everything I need is here, and everyone around me is being taken care of, and we have time to enjoy each other, to learn about life, to support each other. We start feeling full of inspiration and possibility. And then we say, oh, I start to relate to this force that's giving everything to me. Now, when I'm starting to relate to this force that's giving to me, I realize that I'm a Cancer if I just want to take for myself, right? So we talked at first, we're an animal who just wants to receive for himself. It's not good or bad. He has no consciousness of any of this process. He has a feeling, he goes after it, that's it. Then he starts to feel, oh, well, maybe it's better for me, and that's all the trickery and everything. It'll look better. I'm going to give to you, but only so I receive to myself. Now, all of a sudden, I start to understand what kind of system I'm in. And there's this force that's providing everything. And I just want that force to be good because it's providing everything. Now, this is already kind of the third level. That's called that's stop doing bad. That's really kind of stop doing bad. This is already kind of like, we call it bestow in order to bestow, so to speak.
Let me add to this beautiful picture.
Please.
About the, let's say, the last stage of it, or the stage where the transition happens. I would zoom into that process and say this, that right now we're at the point of gradually recognizing You can call this, in Kabbalah, we call this recognition of evil, or recognition of our oppositeness to the law of nature. These concepts of good and evil are very, they have religious connotations and obscure interpretations. So to be more, technical about it, we have to discover, feel it, sense it in all our bones that we are opposite to the law of nature. And that's what we're getting into. This is what I would say, this is where we are now. And as we progress in this, we're going to feel how nature doesn't respond well to our presence on this planet, and we can't calm down. We can't find peace. We can't find fulfillment. We are looking for it in the wrong place. And then there's a transition that needs to happen. That's the spiritual renaissance, I would say. That's the great transition, right? That we have to recognize that our desire for more, which animals don't have, the reason that we can't settle for just living, picking fruit off the trees and being nice to each other. The reason we have to build these empires and conquer lands and get into war with other countries and produce this poison-based McDonald's food everywhere in different shapes and forms to get us addicted to this dopamine hit so we can just get something to fill our lack with something, right? The reason we have this huge human level of desire is because we have a need for a higher level of fulfillment. And that's the mind shift that we need to go through. And when we start identifying that the kind of fulfillment we're actually truly yearning for is non-material, then we will recognize that we have to, that's essentially the end of the material world. It's the end of it. We will have exhaust our need for trying to fulfill our human level in this world. Will become rational and balanced in our consumption, because we will take from this world what we need, but all this huge desire to enjoy and to be fulfilled and to be great and to find our uniqueness and our vocation and our role and purpose and meaning in life, all of that will be fulfilled not through matter, but through the non-material realm.
It's not only that it can't, that it won't. There's no amount of sex, there's no amount of food, there's no amount of money
Right.
that is capable, because the purpose of creation is to fill us with, and remember the 2 points that Rabash talks about. The purpose of creation is to fill us with endless delight.
Yes.
Chris, come back. The
Chris wanted
correction,
to say something, and we
the
scared
cor-
him,
the
we
correct,
scared
yeah,
him
don't
off.
go anywhere. The correction on it is the change to being able to receive it in a spiritual vessel and not in my stomach.
We
And
will
that is when we start to perceive the end of this physical world.
and we'll discover that this whole physical existence from 13.8 billion years ago until today and whatever's left, we will see that all of this was just to train our vessels, our consciousness, to be able to perceive the higher level that we actually came from. We are this spiritually non-material connected entity that is found in equivalence of form with the governing force of nature behind matter, the force of bestowal and love that produces this whole developing creature. We are already in contact with it. We're just unaware of it. We're just under concealment. We have to train our senses, train our consciousness, train our minds, our hearts to see where we actually are and be able to be in this endless flow of pleasure of eternity. Eternity is not such a weird thing, by the way. If you think about it, just basic things like the law of conservation of energy, the law of conservation of matter. The It's very clear that nothing is disappears, nothing gets lost. What's something that ends? There's no such. So the we're gonna have to rise to a whole new level of perception beyond all of those limitations: time, space, motion, life, death. It's just a transient perception until we reconnect with our eternal one. Chris, go ahead. Yeah, we're,
No, it's
yeah.
great every time. It's great. I was just thinking of my childhood a little bit whenever I was a kid, and I had this little, we called it a ranch. I guess it was a ranch, little second home. And I remember walking around as a kid, like, kind of by myself, and you see all the things in nature happening around you. You know, the lake is there, and the fish were already there before I was here, and everything kind of existed. And I just remember having this feeling like how am I supposed to interact with you? Like, I feel like I just want to be close. You want to camp outside, you want to have a fire. Like, why do you want to do all those things? Like, be outside and hang out and like be with trees and be with grass, and like you have this like deep urge to want to be like in nature. You don't really know
Hmm.
how to, though. It's like this desire is like, it's like you're kind of sad, like, okay, I guess that means you look around you and you see other people building houses and like, being self-sufficient, and that means you're, in the right relationship with nature. But I remember feeling like this emptiness, like, no, that's not really it. It doesn't, because I don't really feel like it's reciprocal. Like, even my dog or my cat, it's like I can give you like the food and I kind of get this like nice attitude back, but I don't really feel like I'm doing the right kind of thing. I don't feel like I'm acting the right way. I feel like it's still not the connection with that nature, even if it's physical nature. It's still not the same connection that I once always felt like this big lack. And so you guys were talking exactly about that. I was like, reminded me of my childhood, and it's like, I guess this is it. This is the kind of
Hmm.
connection that all of humanity is looking for. It's not, it's like just on a different level. You don't know where to look for it, but you know that
Hmm.
something's missing.
Right.
Chris, I felt like that after doing psychedelic mushrooms back in my 20s, early 20s. Um, you like have these experiences and you're like in nature, but you know, the mushrooms are all connected under the ground. The trees are all connected under the ground. The birds, everything in nature. But we leave humans. Like we think whale communication, we think communication between whales, and it is unbelievable. We think the communication of mushrooms under the ground is unbelievable. We have no idea that every thought we're thinking is projected into the
Hmm.
network of all other humans. We can affect the entire system. And like Chris, like what you're saying, like how am I supposed to connect with a tree? How am I supposed to connect with the lake and the fish? Through our spiritual connection, which comes through this connection of our hearts together, the human hearts together, we discover that we are uh, one vessel, like we said in our last show, um, against nature. And our connection allows us to, our good connection between humans allows us to create a vessel that can begin to perceive uh, spirituality, this other level beyond the material. And let's end like this, that when you think of, I've been trying to learn music for a really long time. And so many exercises, so many scales, um, so many hours of practicing. But when you think about a child, I heard this from a great musician called, his name is Victor Wooten. He's a bass player. He said, when a child learns to speak, you don't say to the child, listen, you just go into the corner until you learn your ABCs. Or like, I'm not going to talk to you until you can string a few sentences together. The child hangs out with the expert speakers. There's no distance between them. And we see today that as people are finishing our first fundamental classes in KabU, they're entering the lesson with the Kabbalist and with the students who've been there for 10 years, 20 years, 25 years. The beginning students, as soon as they get a foundation, are in there. Why? Because we're all being influenced by this upper light. And the way that we come to this new level is not going to be through, oh, I need to practice every scale. Oh, I need to practice the. No, it's like a baby. The baby just needs to be around in the influence of the sources, of the Kabbalistic sources, and of what's going on, this kind of other perception, and it moves us. It develops us like a baby develops, and then all of a sudden begins to speak into higher desires. Um, we start to be drawn towards this higher connection, and the physical world, while it still remains, it in the meantime, it becomes I don't know, maybe the way that we would relate to our organs. They're there,
Mm.
they're working, we use them, but it's not this. I don't associate myself with my lungs, and in the same way, the physical world in the meantime will be here, but we will start to be above it, feeling each other in that other network. Asaf, we covered a lot of ground today. I'm not even sure
Yeah.
how we got to this point right here.
there's there's a lot. Obviously, there's more to explore here. There's something that really got me interested in exploring, where Chris talked about this experience, that there's this attitude that we all have towards nature that we need to figure out. This is all of human history. What we're doing in our development is we are gradually discovering, defining, realizing, recognizing, changing our attitude to nature. Who are we, and what is this source of life that we are in relationship with? And the magic is that if we relate to each other as parts of this uh, um, eternal reality, transcendent reality, this source of that gives life to everything, then we also discover, the deeper relationship that we have with the governing force of nature. That's the whole riddle and magic at the same time. We're pieces of one whole, and when we discover that we are connected, that we are one, we also discover an equivalence of form, as Kabbalists say. We will sympathize with the governing law of nature to the extent that we sympathize with each other being one. The good in us, the bad in us, the everything. All right, you're playing a
Sorry about
song
that.
there. Yeah, that was you just made a like a hit, like a drum hit to make the point.
I've never been good at multitasking.
All right, what do you got for us?
Well,
Let's
friends, thank
see.
you so much for being here. The chats are so awesome. So great to see everybody participating and bringing the love. We see you both on the Great Transition YouTube page and on the Kabbalahinfo YouTube page. And I don't have Facebook open, but Asaf, we're probably broadcasting on Facebook today
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, and it's great to see everybody from many different places around the world. I'm not even going to try to read all these places, and some great additions to the conversations, input, and ideas that everyone is throwing in. We usually try to also look at these chats later after the show, because we can't, while we're talking, we're missing a lot of them, but we see it in the angle of the eye. Everything's like alive in the chat, and it gives a great feeling that there's a desire that we all feel, that we all share, and it's a unique one. And hopefully we can get back here together next week and feel it again.
We'll be here next Tuesday at 2
I
p.m.
think we're broadcasting
Eastern.
on Thursday, and I'm pretty sure
Sorry, Thursday.
today's
I keep saying
Thursday.
Tuesday.
I think I say
Yeah.
Tuesday a couple of times as well, but it's actually Thursday. Yeah.
So as we go, let's just explain that there is a power in us coming together, and this is our next level. And even if, as humanity, we start to receive just a little bit of knowledge about this system, it already begins to have a huge positive effect. And if we help humanity in this way, we become a conduit between this force that created this life and is elevating us and the rest of humanity. So as we go out on this song, let's all of us just put a few seconds of thought into how much we want it to be good for everyone. How much this system prepared enough food for everyone, right? The problem is just the human greed. This system prepared enough technology that the robots can do all the boring jobs, did enough of everything. So let's put a few seconds while we're listening to this song as we go out into it, where that connection is between us. So we'll see y'all next Thursday. Our connection, can this world be perceived through uniting desire?